Hello, my name is Sydney, and in today's video, I'm going to share how I got involved in research as an undergrad. No, I didn't overline my lips. This is just some angular cheilitis since I'm a mouth breather in my sleep and I probably drooled on myself. Anyways, now that the elephant on the face has been addressed, this video will be divided into 3 sections: general research information, how to find a lab, and 3, a research email, including a sample draft and some tips that will help you in preparing for your search or your research lab. I wanted to first go over some context. I got involved in research kind of in the middle of my junior year. That was a result of just psyching myself out, wanting to wait until I was ready for research. So I had enough classes, so I felt like competent to join labs. But honestly, I'd say the best way to gauge if research is for you is to just Nike that ish and just do it. It's very crucial to have patience, not only in the lab searching process, but once you are admitted into a lab. Sometimes we're in this rush to
go, let's have some hands-on experience.
At times, the work itself can be repetitive and tedious, but one thing that could really help push yourself going to research is just remembering the why. That would just motivate you to understand that what you're doing is big. Ultimately, you're trying to answer a scientific question to better our understanding of human health and how we care for people in general. I truly believe it is such a crucial experience to have, especially in undergrad. It kind of is your first window in this new environment. It is super important because you would increase your ability to read scientific literature. That doesn't only help in classes, but also in taking the MCAT. It helps foster that appreciation for how it translates clinically and how it can help people. Like I mentioned earlier, it is such a unique, fascinating opportunity that is literally at your disposal. So if you can, please take advantage of it. General research information. There are 3 types of research: basic, I missed my finger, basic, translational, and clinical. Basic research is basically, generally the curiosity-driven research, asking the big why questions of why does phenomena happen, or by what mechanism does this disease progress. You're more so looking at the molecular level of cells. DNA, protein,
why did I skip the dogma?
DNA, RNA, proteins, just how they interact with each other. An example could be studying about, nope, I'm not gonna do example because I'm gonna sound stupid. Translational research is basically the—
no, don't say basic.
Is the bench to bedside mantra of research. So let's say in basic science research, we find that a gene looks very promising in targeted therapy. Instead of directly messing with that gene in people, we would first want to find different combinations or different variations of that treatment in different model organisms to modulate how we would potentially deliver it in people before we actually implement that in healthcare treatment. An example was actually my main involvement in undergrad. I was in a radiation oncology lab. Our main goal was to find the optimal combination and delivery of radiation and drug to see which combination of that over which timeline would curve the most growth as a potential therapeutic in cancer stem cell metabolism. The last kind of research is clinical research. It explores new treatments, medications, and diagnostic techniques. So the main gist is in clinical research, you are mostly dealing with people. That can be conducted through human subject surveys, health services research, or clinical trials. An example of an involvement I had in clinical research was when I was a clinical research associate in the emergency department. I went around to each patient's room and asked if they wanted to conduct a survey just to gather data, general questions about pain, lifestyle, and just their health history. Once you join a lab, you'll start to see that there is a structure or a hierarchy within the lab. Brief description of who's who. There is a principal investigator or a PI. They do bring in a lot of the funding that the lab can use. They kind of more so have a consultory role now that they are a PI, just to make sure that their lab is running and moving and answering the questions that they set out to answer. Next is postdoctorate researcher? I usually just say postdoc. This person essentially is someone who has completed their graduate program, so they already have a PhD. They're usually the lead of a project or multiple projects, pushing those experiments through, generating and analyzing data to eventually publish within this lab. You'll also see graduate students, people just in process of pursuing their PhDs, and I'm not too familiar with it, but I always hear the terms that they're having to work towards a thesis or defend their dissertation. You'll also possibly see some staff research associates associates, or SRAs for short. And these people are usually people who work full-time within the lab, within projects, and helping push them to completion. And this is where you could possibly funnel in research technicians and undergraduate research assistants. A lot of the times I find that research technicians, especially if they're still an undergrad, fall under the umbrella of jobs offered by work study. As an undergraduate research assistant or volunteer, you're basically there to work with a postdoc to help them push their project and for them to train you on the different research techniques and just kind of open your horizon to what research has to entail. So some possible tasks that you could do include, first I'd like to preface that your level of involvement is determined by your level of commitment. What you get out of the lab is a result of what you put into the lab. This isn't a comprehensive list, but I just wrote down the first things that came into mind. First section, since this is more relevant for the bench side of research, you can partake in routine maintenance, cell culture, which is like splitting, feeding, plating cells. You can also have a hand in media solution or buffer prep, or if your research lab has model organisms, you could possibly partake in their care. You could also be a part of the experiment execution. This is kind of where the technical skills come in, like PCR, VAX, maybe animal surgeries, drug or treatment delivery, spear forming assays, for example. You could also be involved in data collection and analysis, and this is where the analytical skills kick in, where I find differentiates yourself from kind of like the research tech to being able to think like a scientist, which is a great skill to foster. Tasks that fall under this umbrella would be like counting cells, microscopy imaging, data entry, figure generation, just basically answering the question of why is this even significant, or like what does this help us answer. For clinical research, I guess I'll mention what I've done in the past because I've had different stints with clinical research and that kind of gave me different levels of exposure. First, I was a clinical research administrative assistant. In this role, I did not see patients at all. I usually set clinic schedule. I screened patients whether they'd be eligible to participate in the clinical research study, looking through patient history and databases such as Epic. I created research collection kits, a lot of sputum collection, swabs, tubes, and bags that would eventually collect blood. I also was a sample courier, so after, let's say, a sample was drawn, I would walk to the hospital, pick it up, and bring it back to the lab. And I would do a lot of study appointment reminders through phone call. Secondly, I was a clinical research associate in an emergency department. I did directly interact with patients, specifically do the consenting process, such as what the study looked like, what participation entailed, and possible risks associated with the research study, I was explaining their subject bill of rights. And after that was all said and done, I would conduct that survey via an iPad. And lastly, now I am a clinical research coordinator. The easiest way to kind of distill what I do, I directly interact with people on both the lab end and the patient end. All of my tasks revolve on ensuring that the scientists get the sample that they're requesting, a specific age cohort, demographic, or a disease condition. If I were to break this down, just like bullet point the tasks that I do, recruitment for specific cohorts, I screen for eligibility over the phone through questionnaires, I schedule and coordinate appointments, especially if they're longitudinal studies, I do the consenting. I also get to do some clinical duties. I recently got phlebotomy certified, so I also get to now take the sample myself. I get to assist physicians in procedures and also just be in that healthcare environment. But after, the fun part with people are some admin tasks, post-visit data entry, study tracking, so the lab has that picture of who their donor is without knowing who the donor is. Confidentiality is key. Working on IRB protocol renewals and amendments. How to find a lab. Let's say you're trying to find a lab cold. I'd first recommend to identify your research interests. Find potential labs through, I know UCLA had this, a departmental research directory. Other ways you can use the internet, as simple as Googling your school's name as well as your research interests. You can also find labs that might be recruiting through research postings. A couple PIs sometimes when they're looking for undergrad volunteers will post on your departmental research site. So let's say you're coming in hot, and that would be if you had a referral. You can ask around for friends that are graduating or if friends are currently in labs that are recruiting. At UCLA, there's also a research minor called biomedical research. In addition to taking classes that would prep yourself to succeed in research, you also got to talk one-on-one with the program directors just to find that suitable research mentor for you to start working in their lab. The research email request. include my sample draft in the description below, as well as some general tips to prepare yourself when you are ready to send out those emails. In terms of how to help your email stand out, I would recommend to have this general question in mind when you are constructing the bodies to your specific emails. How can you bring value to their lab? Having that framework of what you can personally provide can help best put yourself in a situation where they will take that chance and let you in their lab. So some other questions: why do you want to choose their lab? PIs will most likely ask that question during the interview just to best gauge fit. This next question, this could be something that could help you reflect on what piques your scientific interest. I would also make a note that though you have minimal experience, you understand that research is a big commitment and you will dedicate great time and effort to grow intellectually and professionally in this lab. And with that, this is kind of expected to commit 2+ years to the lab if you have that time, since they are putting a lot of time and effort to training you. I say when you first start, 10 to 15 hours a week is really good. For my sample draft, at the end of that email body, I would attach resume or your CV to show your academic courses and your GPA, as well as your class schedule, just to show that you have large blocks of free time for you to dedicate to lab. 3+ hours is good for a general block of time. As for some tips before you send out the email, be specific. Tailor your research. I would avoid mass emailing generic research requests because labs can definitely tell when you don't put in the energy or effort. And in general, spending this time to understand what labs do, you're investing potentially the next 2 years to this lab. It's only a disservice to yourself if you don't research with intention. I would also stay organized with an Excel because you will be sending quite a few emails before you start getting some hits. As an example, you could divide this Excel in the name of the lab, typically it's the PI's name, the research focus, the best lab contact, a short description of their goals or their past works. You can kind of glean through that by reading old publications or abstracts, the email draft that you sent, as well as the status. Other tips I would recommend: email early in the morning at the beginning of the week. That would just increase your chances of being seen and for your email to be read. I would check in on the status of your email request every 3 days, and I would follow up twice before abandoning that lab. I wouldn't wait for one to get back to you completely before sending more because time is of the essence. I would also email the PI and the lab manager. The manager is most likely in charge of recruitment or lab staffing. I would also recommend to keep your email concise. I would also mention that you are able to start during summers or other breaks where there are low flux of students. That just allows you to take care of the training and logistics. You hit the ground running and show that you will be able to be there. My last tip, I know this might be hard, is just to keep a positive attitude. A lot of times when we're not getting responses or we're not getting that follow through, I would just say getting research is generally a matter of timing, if that lab is open to or accepting students at that time. So it isn't a testament to your character, such as, oh no, I'm not getting research because I'm underqualified. No, that's not it. A lot of times labs understand that this is your first research experience. Ultimately what they're looking for is someone who's willing to commit long term and someone who's just excited and eager to learn. So just wait. It's coming, it's coming. I know it, it's coming your way. So yes, that concludes all the points I wanted to cover for today's video. As always, please leave any questions you have in the comments or any videos that you'd like to see. I just wanted to thank Anya for suggesting today's topic, as well as Gerardo for suggesting my MCAT video that I did a couple weeks back. Once again, thank you for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye.